everybody. This is guinea worm disease, scientific name dracunculiasis. The infectious agent is Dracunculus medinaceus, which is the scientific name for guinea worm. It is a parasite that infects predominantly humans and is carried by a vector of a copepod, which is a water flea. The genus name actually comes from the word dragon, and another species within the genus that's significant is Dracunculus insignis, which is found in North America and infects dogs and wild carnivores. But guinea worm, D. medinaceus, is found in Africa and was found in Asia. And there's only 54 cases in 2019. And it's seen this tremendous drop as this eradication process has been undergone by the Carter Center, which has spearheaded the campaign and has been backed up by like the WHO and the CDC. Predominantly right now, it's most prevalent in the country of Chad with 47 cases, but it's also found in a couple other countries. Ethiopia and Mali are still considered endemic because not enough time has passed since their last case of guinea worm disease. Historically, it's been around. We've known about it. It's shown up in the Bible, potentially, most likely, and it's also believed that it's the inspiration for the medical symbol of the rod of Asclepius, which is seen right here in the WHO logo. And it's believed because the treatment for guinea worm involves wrapping the worm around a stick, which kind of is what this looks like right here. So recently, we've seen a tremendous drop in cases. In 1986, there were reported 3.5 million cases of guinea worm disease worldwide, and worldwide in 2019 there was only 54. And even in the past 20 years, in 2000s, we've seen places like Uganda have the disease eradicated. In Nigeria, in Sudan, really a ginormous change. And especially you can see in South Sudan here, in 2001 there was almost 50,000 cases, and now we're at 0. So there's been pretty significant change. But also in 2010, you can see Chad had an outbreak after not having any reported cases. And they also had another outbreak in 2019 in the first half of the year, with 23 cases being associated, with 12 of the 23 cases the first half of the year being associated with this Chad outbreak. And Chad is now the epicenter of the disease, as part of it has to do with it has a large dog population, about 1,300 reported dogs that are infected with guinea worm, that can be contaminated water sources and stuff, and that adds a level of difficulty to eradicate in Chad. Yes. So the transmission cycle, as I mentioned, it's carried by a vector, a copepod, which is a water flea. So it ingests the larvae within the water. A human drinks unfiltered water that carries this copepod carrying the larvae. The copepod is digested in the stomach fluids and breaks down, and the larvae breaks out, chews through the stomach wall, chews through the intestinal wall, and it matures and mates in the subcutaneous tissue. The male dies after mating, and the female grows up to 120 centimeters over a 10 to 14 month period, and its body here is just filled. I mean, absolutely, like most of this is the interior is a uterus containing hundreds of thousands of larvae, and then once it's ready, it uses the connective tissue to move to a bodily extremity, and once the host makes contact with the water, it breaks through the skin layer and releases all its larvae out, repeating the transmission cycle. And so people that are at risk are people that are going to be most likely to drink these copepods from contaminated water sources, and these contaminated water sources are most often going to be stagnant. Those are you're more likely to get infected if you drink from stagnant versus flowing water. Um, and then people who are fetching water are also more likely to drink unfiltered water because they're making first contact and they might try the water to see how it tastes, or they might just be thirsty and they want a quick sip or what have you. But also, aquatic animals can harbor the disease, harbor the parasitic worm, and if it's not properly cooked, you can get infected by that way. So the key to prevention, there's no vaccine, and so prevention is primarily due to breaking the transmission cycle through water filtration, which you can see this gentleman doing. This is actually a common instrument uh, utilized by the Carter Center, and it's been pretty effective. And health education, teaching people not to step in water when you've got a blister forming from the guinea worm trying to break through. How to get treated, things like that, to make sure to filter your water. That helps mitigate the spread and also getting infected. So education and filtration are very, very important to prevention, and have been very effective, as you can see with the graphs earlier. Pathology we talked about a little bit, but it can affect any bodily extremity, including the head. So it can be arms, head, legs, just an extremity. Though 80 to 90% of cases are affecting the leg or foot, and it's going to result in a blister that can also form into an ulcer if it's not properly treated. The immune response with these things is innate predominantly. You can't build up an immunity, and you're susceptible to reinfection. And it's an inflammatory response as indicated by the blisters, and the blister fluid is filled with antigens of neutrophils, macrophages, lymphocytes, and eosinophils. Other symptoms besides the blisters, a fever, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, dizziness. You have a 120 centimeter worm moving around you, moving through your connective tissues by your stomach, and it also burrowed through your intestinal wall and stomach wall. And it's living in your body, it's feeding off of you, and that's going to cause pain and discomfort, and especially as it moves through the connective tissues, you're going to see these symptoms showing up. So symptoms predominantly show up 10 to 14 months after initial infection. So diagnosis. So since the blister is so obvious and these communities are affected year after year, they're aware of the situation. Self-diagnosis happens a lot, though medical professionals do diagnose as well. So the issue is making sure people know how to self-treat or know to go to a medical professional if they can to self-treat. So that's where health education plays an important role in helping to mitigate the spread and mitigate infection. So treatment, as I was talking about with the WHO symbol, is pretty interesting. Basically what you do is, so as it breaks up to the surface, it's the female worm is waiting for water to come in contact with the blister. The blister is fiery hot. That's why it was referred to most likely fiery serpent. It's fiery serpent in the Bible because it's red hot, and you want water to cool off. And so once the person is in contact with the water, the worm tries to burst out, and it spews its larvae all over the place. So treatment is basically you pour water on the blister, the worm comes out right when it's coming out, and you put gauze over it so to keep all the larvae from spewing out and trapping that, and then you slowly roll it up on a stick or something, centimeter by centimeter. You can only do that. You can only do a couple centimeters a day, and it takes several weeks. And it's a very painful process, and it's the only treatment option as there's no vaccine. But it is effective in getting rid of the guinea worm. As there is a treatment process, and we are so close to eradication, most research falls around surveillance, trying to figure out where contaminated water sources are, investigating reports about infection of people or water sources or even dogs, because dogs, there were 1,300 dogs around in Chad reported in 2019 that were harboring the disease, that were infected. Um, so there's been a lot of campaign. There's been some research into deworming drugs to help treat canine infections. This right here is surveillance team that researches reports and contaminated water sources and things like that. And in the future, uh, in all likelihood, we are going to eradicate guinea worm. That is great news. Um, the two biggest barriers are internal conflicts, um, preventing healthcare workers to getting where they need to go because it's unsafe, um, and also the dog population is actually dangerous because they can contaminate water sources as they go in, and they're drinking unfiltered water because they're dogs. So that's an issue. But we have it's in capable hands with Dr. Donald Hopkins here. He helped to eradicate smallpox in Sierra Leone, which was an epicenter of it, in kind of a tremendously short amount of time. And then he's been working with the Carter Center to eradicate guinea worm disease too. And I would recommend you look into him because he's pretty amazing. But it's in capable hands, and we are most likely going to eradicate it very soon. And thank you.